I am so excited to show you guys my new sewing studio shed office space. So I'm going to give you a little tour. We'll walk around and I'll show you all the nooks and crannies, give you all the details. And then I've sourced like a billion questions from you guys on Instagram. So we're gonna walk through all the details. So first up is a little tour. So on one side we have these big built-in cabinet storage wardrobe situation. I'll give you a peek inside that in just a minute. In the center, I have a really big cutting table. It was really important to me that this table was huge. It's 36 inches by 60 inches and also had space to walk all around. And then an ironing board next to that. Then on the far side, we have two long desks. On one side is like a sewing station, my sewing machine, my serger, and then on the other end is more of like a computer station situation. So that's what the inside looks like. I have a little shelf above there, and I'll tell you where I got everything too in just a minute. But first, let's peek inside the cabinets. I do have handles coming, but they are still in the mail. But this is what the inside of the wardrobe looks like. So I have hanging space for projects I'm working on or just like overflow things that I've made from my closet, and then tons and tons of fabric. I need to get a lot more, but I got these drawers. So these wardrobes are from IKEA, and then I just made them into built-ins, which I'll kind of talk through that process in a bit. But I wanted to make sure I had not just a lot of space, but also shelves that would pull out so that I could really easily stack my fabric. So that's what this wardrobe looks like. Next door is just more storage space. I have a longer hanging space and shelves for just like miscellaneous items. I know this will be way messier in a few weeks for sure. And then the bench I built mostly for a cozy place to sit, but it does open. It has more storage in here. It's a little bit hard with the pillows on top and one hand, but right now it's mainly just leftover construction things, some quilt batting, but I am really happy with how the bench situation ended up. And then up here above is more storage space. You can see I have a couple bolts of fabric there. I would love to get more bolts and kind of fill this whole triangle area full of bolted fabric. Coming over to the side, all of my like sewing tools and notions and things are stored in these drawers, which I'll show you inside a couple. A lot of them are kind of disorganized at the minute, but I'll show you a few drawers. And caveat about this tabletop, I've had it for like 8 years and my kids have absolutely thrashed it. So it is looking a little worse for wear. But as far as drawers, I have like easy access to the things I grab all the time, like my scissors, measuring tape, rotary cutters, needles. I have pins and clips, pin cushions, things like that. Yeah, you probably don't need to see absolutely all of my drawers, but I will show you, I keep my thread in here just to the right of my sewing station, so it's really easy access. And I might switch up this thread situation. I don't like love it, but it works for now. And then as far as where I keep my patterns, I have had them stored in these like file boxes for the last few years. And then each pattern is, you know, folded and put in its appropriate file. But this drawer that I have now that's new is set up to be able to put the files in like stacked in an orderly way. So I'll probably kind of reorganize them and stack my patterns like that. So that's where my patterns are. So there's a little overview of what my sewing room entails, but there is so much that went into creating this space. So let's chat through how we got here. So I am just going to walk through basically the entire process of how this space came to be. A lot of it I did on my own, but I'll give as many like links and resources and information as possible. But it was a really big job. It was pretty much my full-time, like I put full-time energy toward it for the past 7 weeks. So it was a huge undertaking. It took up all my brain space, but it was really fun. So I am excited to talk to somebody about it. Okay, so starting off, the actual structure, like the shed building, we worked with a company to build that. So that company is called Better Built Barns. I'll like link their website in the description, but they were great to work with. So basically what you do is you go on their website and they have like some base designs that you start with. Like you choose kind of the base you want, and then it's like Sims. Like you go on there and choose what windows you want and doors and where you want them and how big you want and what size ceiling and what size walls. You like literally customize everything. So the one that I got is 10 feet by 16 feet, and that is like, I think on the larger range. And I was worried I would maybe make it too big, but I feel like it's perfect because I didn't want anything that was like huge and would take up so much of my backyard. But I also think I needed this amount of space to be able to do what I need to do. So 10 by 16 was perfect. So for what I chose, all of my customizations, it took like a day and a half, which was like crazy reasonable. They just pull up in this big like trailer with all of the pieces of the shed on it, and then you like show them where you want it and they just build it in your backyard. It is so cool. And it was also really nice that we didn't really have to worry about any of that part. I mean, obviously I did a lot of the rest of it on my own, but I'm very glad that they gave us like a shell to start with. So they build the shed exterior up to the studs, and then they dip out and say, do what you want with it. So you can leave it as a shed, you can put your lawnmower in it, or like we did, you can completely renovate the whole inside. So once they were done, we needed to put the electrical in, which I don't know how to do that. And luckily my father-in-law does know how to do that. And so he very graciously came and stayed with us for a few days and helped us wire the electricity out here, which I'm not exactly sure all the details of how that works, but basically he got power from the house and we dug a trench through our backyard, and like in pipes, he put like the wires in through pipes. Is this making any sense? So he got the power from our house, brought it out here, and then he wired the outlets and the light switches, and he put like the lights in the ceiling. So very grateful for that because I would not have known where to even start with electricity. And then once the electrical was done, then he also stayed and helped us put up the drywall because he had a lot of experience with drywall. So drywall, mud, and electricity, we had help from family with that. And then once the walls were done, it was time to start on the ceiling, which might be my favorite part. I don't think I showed it very well, but our ceiling is a cedar plank ceiling. And we got these planks from Home Depot, so I'll see if I can find the link for them and put them in the description. But they're called like tongue and groove planks, so instead of being like flat on the ends, they have like one end has a tongue and one end has a groove, and so they like slot into place. So we just had to like cut each board to the right length, and then they kind of all slot in place, which sounds like, oh, easy peasy, it's a puzzle. And it was fairly easy, but it took a really long time, especially with all the little like bits and bobs. And like there's a beam in the center here that we kind of had to like wrap the beam and wrap the windows, and yeah, it was a lot of work. So the ceiling itself took quite a bit of time, but once the ceiling was all the way done, we had the walls done, the electricity done, the ceiling was all done, then it was time to start with the flooring and the built-in wardrobes, which I did on my own. So the flooring I got from a local hardware store. I'll see if I can find a link for that as well. But it's just like laminate, it's wood looking laminate, and I didn't want to do anything like crazy fancy or expensive because I figured it would get scuffed up. I didn't want to stress about it too much, so it's a pretty like simple, cheap-ish flooring, and I just kind of Googled how to put that in. But then for the wardrobes and the bench, that might be the thing that I'm the most proud of in this whole process, because before I did this, I had never like built anything before, and I was purely in my carpentry era. So essentially how I did it, the wardrobes are from IKEA. They're called the PAX wardrobe system. PAX, I'll link that also in the description. But like with a lot of things at IKEA, you can like customize kind of what you want with like the different elements and pieces that they have. So you can go online and like build out like the wardrobes that you want, like what sizes and what shelves you want and all that stuff. So I went and did that and ordered all of the things that I needed. And then I built those like you build normal IKEA furniture, but instead of just like laying it against the wall, you build a base with 2x4s, and then you set the wardrobe on top of that base. And you kind of like screw it all into the wall and to itself. And there was some like blog posts that I found on Pinterest that I kind of used as loose guidance. So I'll see if I can find some of those too and link those. But I watched a lot of YouTube videos and read a lot of like blog posts of other people who did similar things, and then I sort of just found the best way to do it from that. So wardrobes were actually pretty simple. Once those were in, because all you really need to do was build the base and kind of like secure them to each other, I had this space over on this side that was empty, and I was trying to decide, I wanted some place to sit, but I just felt like a couch wasn't quite, like it didn't like feel cohesive, and I wanted something that looked a little bit nicer. And in my dream world, like a built-in bench would be perfect, but again, like I don't build things, I don't know how to do that. So I decided to just like try it, like I'd head that direction, and if it was a disaster, I'd bail. So kind of the same thing I did with the wardrobes. I just like read blog posts, watched YouTube videos, Googled things, tried to figure out how one might build a built-in bench. And I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. It was fairly easy. So I built a base similar to the base that I built for the wardrobe, and then I built like a top, like a identical base for the top, and then attached it with 2x4s and made sure that it like could hold the weight and that I wasn't going to fall through it or break it if I sat on it. And then I wrapped it in plywood on the front, and then there's like a really fat plywood plank on the top, which I cut the like lid out of so that you could use it for storage too. So once I had the bench done and the wardrobes done, then the rest of this space was empty. And it looked fine, but it just felt like, oh, wouldn't it be so perfect if there was like shelves above it too? So sort of on a whim, I decided I wanted to build shelves. Again, had no sort of instruction there. I kind of just used the scrap bits of wood I had, plywood and 2x4s I cut down to be thinner, and I made like support beams, put plywood on the top and bottom, made sure they were secure, and I called it a day. So once all the built-in stuff was done, I was feeling very accomplished, proud of myself. Then I did all the moldings, like wrapped the door and the windows and the baseboards and all of that stuff. And then I painted it all. The paint that I used on the wardrobes, the built-ins, the moldings, all of that stuff is a PPG paint. I'll put this in the description too, but it's called Gray Mauve, and it's just a really nice, like, sort of, I mean, a grayish mauve. It's like a little bit purple, a little bit gray, a little bit mushroomy, and I am so happy I went with it. This was probably the one thing that I really went back and forth a lot on and was like stressed about, because originally I wanted like a yellowish color, or maybe I was thinking about maybe a green color, but the exterior is green. I didn't want there to be too much green, and I also didn't want it to be like too bold of a color, because it is quite, I mean, it takes up a lot of the space. So I was concerned about that, but I feel like all in all, it came together really nicely. I'm liking that color a lot. So that is basically all of the construction things. A few other things that people have asked me about is the heating and cooling situation. So I live in a pretty temperate climate. I live in Oregon, so it doesn't get super hot, it doesn't get super cold. My house doesn't have AC. In fact, the office I was working out of before this was like an offshoot of the garage, so that didn't have heating or cooling either, and it ended up being mostly fine. So in the winter, I'll use a space heater, which I had used in my old office anyway. I would just turn it on like 15 minutes before coming in the mornings, just wear like sweatshirts and long pants, and I feel like it's gonna be fine. And then in the summer when it's really hot, I actually got a little AC unit that you can see here, and it has like a hose that attaches to the window. And I turned it on yesterday to see if it worked. It was like 80 degrees yesterday, so it was like a little bit warm in here. And yeah, I feel like it should work pretty well. But again, it really doesn't get super hot here. Like 80s-ish is pretty average for the summer, and it's been about that for the last few days, so I kind of got a taste of what it's going to be like, and it's honestly totally fine until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe from like 3 to 6. It might be like super warm in here, so I have my AC unit if I need it. I might turn that on for like a couple weeks in the summer. I'm probably not gonna use it that much. And then other than that, I'll probably try to just be done working out here before like 3 o'clock-ish so that I don't get the worst of the heat. But yeah, I really feel like it should be fine. I'm not too concerned about it. I also run very cold, so I'm more worried about the winter. But again, I feel like I've had lots of experience with space heaters, and I feel like it's going to be fine. I'm just lucky I live somewhere that's not crazy temperatures. Okay, I'm going to tell you where I got everything. So we already talked about the wardrobes I got from IKEA. I built the other things. This big table here is the love of my life. I'm so obsessed with it. It's a standing height table so that when I'm cutting fabric, I'm not like breaking my back. And it took me a while to find one that I really liked because I wanted one that was fairly big, standing height and adjustable, like the legs are adjustable if I decide I want it higher or lower in the future. I really wanted something with like a wood top because the ceiling is all wood, my desks are wood. I want to make sure that like I'm bringing the wood of the ceiling like down into the design of everything else, kind of make it more cohesive. I didn't want there to be too much of a delineation between the ceiling and the walls. I don't know if all of that is gibberish, but I really wanted a wood tabletop. So this table I actually got from kind of like a funky commercial place. It's called Global Industrial, and I'll also link that in the description. But I think it's meant to be like a woodworking bench. It's called like a workbench, and I think you're supposed to like put it in your garage or workshop area. It's super sturdy. The legs are metal. It's not going anywhere. It's super heavy. But yeah, I am completely obsessed with it. So that's where I got the table from. And then the desks I got from IKEA also. And I got them years ago, but I think they still sell them. They have like whole desk configurations where you pick like what top you want and what legs you want. So I have 3 drawer towers that they sit on and then 2 tabletop lengths. And I did have to cut each table down like a couple inches to get it to fit perfectly in this wall space. But it's exactly how I want it because I really, really like having one half of it be my machines and one half of it be my computer stuff. In basically all of the other offices I've had over the past several years, I've had my computer and sewing machines at the same space, and I kind of just like pull forward what I'm using and it like works fine, but it's just kind of inconvenient. And a lot of times I wouldn't be able to have like my machines like all out at the same time. And so I love having what I need readily accessible. So that's my desks, and I forgot to mention the cutting mat. So this mat is just 24 inches by 36 inches, and that's like a pretty standard big sized mat. But because I got this big new table, I have a bigger mat coming that I think is 48 by 36. So I'm very excited about that. It should fit the table almost exactly. It'll just have a few inches on each of the long ends of the wood showing, but the rest of it will be like completely covered by a mat so I can cut across basically the whole thing. And then I also have a like full-length mirror coming in the mail in a few days on Monday, I think, and I'm gonna put it along this wall here, like behind that wardrobe, because obviously as I'm sewing things and making things, there's lots of times that I need to do little fit checks, and it would be really inconvenient to have to go in my house and look in my bedroom mirror every time I'm sewing something. So that's coming. Handles on the wardrobe are coming. These curtains, which I got from Anthropologie, I bought 4 panels of them, like 1 for each of the small windows and 2 panels for the big window, but they only sent me 3, so I need to take care of that. But I think once all of that comes, we are officially in business. I just didn't want to delay talking to you guys about this anymore. Oh, I also have from Anthropologie, I got these curtain tie backs. Like you can kind of see the curtains. I sort of just tied off to the side. I had to hem them because they were much longer, but I hemmed them, and then with the extra fabric, I just tied them to the side. But I have these tie backs coming from Anthropologie that are like little golden bows that will just like attach to the wall, and then I can scoop the curtain to the side and tuck them behind the bow. Very excited about that. Those are like back ordered, and so they're not coming until June. But again, I didn't want to wait for all these little knickknacks to come to talk about the space. So I'll be linking all of the things we talked about, all the little knickknacks. I'll also, as always, link like the machines I use and like sewing tools that I generally use. So all that stuff should be in the description, but let me know if I miss anything, because there are so many things that I am going to need to remember. And then last thing I wanted to talk about, a lot of people have been asking about like the cost of this whole thing, which I understand if you're like looking at doing something similar, you're wanting kind of like a range or like an estimate of what it might cost. So the company we worked with to get the shed, you can go on their website and like play around with it and design the thing you want to design, and it'll tell you, like give you a cost for it. So at the very, very lowest end, like if you get something super simple and small-ish, I think it starts around like 5,000-ish. And then I don't know what the upper end would be, but maybe in like the 20,000-ish range. So obviously there's a really big gap there and that's just the structure, not any of like the renovations. Mine was in like the low teens, and then with the cost of like all the other supplies and everything like that, maybe another couple thousand on top of that. But yeah, I think depending on your needs and what you're using it for, I feel like there are definitely very like cheap slash cost-effective ways to have some sort of studio like this. I think for me, because this is my job, all of the investment that I'm putting into it is going to come back to me in value of just being able to do my job 100 times better. So there was a lot of things I was able to upgrade because I knew that it would be worth it in the long run. So anyways, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea, a little bit of an estimate. But yeah, it was a really big project. Like I said, it took me from the day they came and installed it up until yesterday, when it was like, I mentally checked off that it was like done, was 7 weeks. And I genuinely did not do it. Like I haven't worked for 7 weeks. I haven't sewn anything. I've like barely answered my email. I've been checked out. So it was a lot of work and it was worth it because it's cute. But yeah, it's doable. You can do things on your own if you want to, but just keep in mind how big of a project you're getting yourself into. All right, I think that covers everything. Let me know if I missed something. But yeah, it was nice to chat about this because like I've said, it's been like my whole life for so long, or what feels like so long, that it's just nice to talk to somebody about it. And thank you guys for being like the nicest humans ever. I feel like sharing the process along the way and showing the big reveal, you guys have just been the kindest people. So thank you so much. I'm excited to start sewing again, finally. So let me know what projects I need to do. I have like a backlog of like patterns and fabric I need to cut into. So yeah, let me know what we need to do, but love you guys.